The outsider, he soon discovers... Scary, right? Good day, good day, good day. Welcome to Drew's Book Reviews. It has been a while since I've talked about H.P. Lovecraft, but as I mentioned earlier this year, I am going through the collected works of H.P. Lovecraft, so I thought it's about time I talk a little bit more about H.P. Lovecraft. So let's talk about that, but before we get into this, why don't you leave a comment down below and let me know if you've read H.P. Lovecraft. Check out the links in the description, you know, the usual Discord, Patreon, Bookstagram, all that good stuff. But let's talk about H.P. Lovecraft and a couple of his stories that I have enjoyed over the past little bit that I haven't quite got around to talking about. So over the past little bit here, one of the stories that really stuck out to me with H.P. Lovecraft is a story called The Outsider. So this is actually a really interesting story that I personally really enjoyed. So The Outsider is a story about this guy who's basically lived alone for decades. He has surrounded by what's described as these oblong boxes. He's in what appears to be an abandoned room in a castle. He's been trapped there for quite some time, and he finally makes his way out and escapes, only to realize that the people he encounters are absolutely terrified of him, and he just can't understand why. So this is from the perspective of this individual who basically comes out, escapes his confines into the world, ventures into the world for the first time in who knows how long. And people are just terrified of him, and he just cannot understand why. I really enjoyed this prospect. I really enjoyed the viewpoint coming from this side of the equation that we often just don't see in these types of stories. H.P. Lovecraft, of course, is the father of horror, or at least that's what I consider him to be, but this is coming from a guy who has not read much in the way of horror at all. But I really enjoyed The Outsider and what this was about and the perspective that this story came from. So of course these are short stories, so it's kind of hard to discuss in detail the stories without giving away the spoilers, so just be warned, there are probably going to be spoilers in this, but these are also stories that are like a century or more old, or approaching that at this point anyway. So the Outsider soon discovers why he is afraid, or why people are afraid of him when he looks in the mirror and discovers what he truly is. And this is the story of a zombie risen from the dead without understanding that he's a zombie. So this is just a fantastic perspective. I love the way the Outsider approached this. It was just so cool to see that. I really like that, where he just, what's going on from his perspective, he doesn't understand, and I just thought that was so cool the way that was done, and that was just awesome, and I love that. That was a really cool perspective. Just the other story I wanted to quickly touch on here about H.P. Lovecraft was The Lurking Fear. So The Lurking Fear is basically this haunted house story that H.P. Lovecraft tells. Now this one's interesting, kind of divided into 4 different sections or 4 different chapters within this overall story, and it's basically this investigator or reporter that wants to kind of figure out what happened, what really happened in this small village that resulted in the disappearance or deaths of many different people that seem to be centered around this one estate or mansion. So he decides he's going to investigate this, and he's going to take some friends with him. He's going to stay overnight in this haunted house and kind of figure out what the heck is going on here. But of course, while they're there, weird things and scary stuff starts happening. 100% they do, and it's just kind of gets kind of creepy. I mean, as the title suggests, The Lurking Fear. So of course, his friends, they sleep overnight only for him to wake up, and he's the lone person left. The others have disappeared. He doesn't know where they go, but he certainly starts to feel or see or sense shadows from this demonic source that seems to be haunting the place, and it just keeps creeping up, and the lurking fear essentially builds up around him. So that's kind of the first little bit there. The shadow and the chimney is essentially that part of the lurking fear tale. And it really helps kind of build the suspense, which H.P. Lovecraft definitely seems to be really good at doing within his stories, kind of building that up and making you feel that kind of shivers or creepiness. Again, I'm not much of a horror fan, but I am really enjoying H.P. Lovecraft and his stories and the short stories that come with that. The second chapter in this, A Passer in the Storm, is basically, you know, we've got 2 characters. They're trapped in they get trapped by this storm, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So our narrator teams up with another reporter or another individual named Arthur Monroe, and they try to figure out what's going on with this mansion. And of course, when they wake up, when the storm passes, he can't figure out why his new partner is still staring out the window, and of course takes one look at him and figures out what's going on here. Now, I don't want to tell you exactly what he sees, but I can tell you it's not a pretty sight, and definitely I don't want to spoil it, right? So I'm trying to give a non-spoiler here on this as far as the lurking fear goes and as far as the storyline goes. But it is definitely, as each chapter goes through, we see more and more about what this haunting is all about. We kind of get more of a haunting sense as we go through each and every chapter in this story. And of course, the chapter 3, which is What the Red Glitter Meant. So the third part of this, What the Red Glitter Meant, he kind of falls into the subterranean catacombs where he has to dig his way out again during another storm. Storm seems to be a big part of this, and that's when the haunting comes out within this, and all he sees is these other red eyes glaring at him, but we don't know exactly what it is behind those red eyes, and it's kind of like creepy. Who knows what's happening with that, right? And just overall, just a fun read from start to finish until we finally get to the horror in the eyes. And we'll just kind of leave it at that because, if you like H.P. Lovecraft, if you haven't read this or you're interested in that, then, I don't want to spoil too much for you, but I can say overall, I've certainly enjoyed my readings of H.P. Lovecraft, and the lurking fear definitely has that lurking fear aspect behind it. So definitely, if you're a horror fan and haven't read H.P. Lovecraft, I guess why not? And if you're not a horror fan, check out H.P. Lovecraft anyway, I think, because they're short stories, and if they don't draw you in, if they don't make you appreciate his work more, then maybe he's just not the writer for you. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I am enjoying my read-through of H.P. Lovecraft's Tales of Horror collected works, and I am definitely enjoying these tales, and I certainly think that you probably will as well if you wanted to check them out. So those are just kind of two stories that I've read lately by H.P. Lovecraft that I've really enjoyed. And I'm looking forward to continuing my read of H.P. Lovecraft throughout this year. And I certainly hope that you would enjoy it as well. So again, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? Have you read H.P. Lovecraft? Have you read any of these stories? Let me know what you think down below. And thanks so much for watching. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, until next time, keep on reading. Bye.